The golden lights of the Grand Seoul Hotel were blinding, but not as blinding as the pain in Adana's chest. She stood in the narrow hallway just outside the ballroom, smoothing down the blue dress she had bought 3 years ago. Inside, she could hear the clapping. It sounded like thunder. They were clapping for him. Taehyung, the man who had just been named CEO of the year. Adana took a deep breath. She was nervous, but she was so proud. Tonight, he was finally going to introduce her. Tonight, she would stop being his secret. The heavy oak doors opened and Taehyung stepped out. He looked like a prince. His suit was sharp, his hair was perfect, and he smelled like expensive cologne and success. Adana smiled, her heart beating fast. Taehyung, she whispered, reaching for his hand. You did it. He didn't take her hand. He didn't smile back. His face was as cold as ice. He looked at her like she was a stain on his perfect shirt. He reached into his jacket pocket, but he didn't pull out a gift. He didn't pull out the necklace he had promised her. He pulled out a thick, yellow envelope. He shoved it into her chest. Take this, he said. His voice was empty. What is this? Adana asked, her hands shaking as she held the envelope. It's a settlement, Taehyung said, looking over her shoulder as if he was afraid someone would see them. Divorce papers. Sign them tonight. My driver will take you to the airport. You have a flight to Lagos in 3 hours. Adana felt the world spin. Airport? Lagos? Taehyung, we are married. I am your wife. I built this with you. He laughed. It was a cruel, short sound. You were a nurse who gave me some money. You don't fit in my world anymore, Adana. Look at you. Then look at where I am going. I need a queen, not a charity case. He turned his back on her. Don't make a scene. Just go. Adana stood there, the yellow envelope burning her hands, watching the man she sacrificed everything for walk back into the light, leaving her in the dark. Subscribe to the channel and comment down below where you are watching from. This is the most important aspect of this story, and trust me, you won't believe what happens next. To understand how Adana ended up standing in that hallway with a broken heart, we have to go back. We have to go back 5 years, to a rainy night in a small, cheap noodle shop in the backstreets of Seoul. Back then, Taehyung was not a CEO. He was nobody. Adana remembered that night clearly. She had just finished a double shift at the hospital. Her feet were aching, and she smelled like antiseptic. She walked into the shop to get a warm bowl of soup. That was when she saw him. Taehyung was sitting in the corner, his head on the table. He was sobbing. Not just crying, but shaking with deep, heavy sobs. There were empty bottles of soju on the table. He looked thin, pale, and completely defeated. Adana was a nurse, but more than that, she had a heart that couldn't ignore pain. She walked over to his table. Are you okay? She asked softly in English. Taehyung looked up. His eyes were red and swollen. He looked at this African woman standing over him with kind eyes. Go away, he muttered in broken English. I am finished. Nobody is ever finished while they are still breathing, Adana said. She sat down opposite him. She didn't know him, but she signaled the owner to bring him some water and hot soup. That night, Taehyung told her everything. He told her about his dream. He was a computer genius. He had an idea for an app called Skylink that would change how businesses communicated. But his father, a strict and traditional man, told him it was a stupid idea. His father wanted him to work in the family factory. When Taehyung refused, his father kicked him out. I have the code, Taehyung said, tapping his head. It is all in here. But I have no computer. I have no server. I have no money. Every investor laughed at me. They said I am a nobody. Adana listened. She saw the fire in his eyes when he talked about his work. She saw a man who was brilliant but broken. Over the next few months, they became friends. Adana would bring him food. She would help him practice his English. And slowly, she fell in love with his passion. One evening, Taehyung came to her small apartment. He was pacing back and forth. I found an investor who will listen, he said, his hands shaking. But I need to show a prototype. I need equipment. I need $50,000, Adana. If I don't have it by Friday, the opportunity is gone forever. I will have to go back to my father and beg on my knees. $50,000. It was a fortune. Adana was just a nurse. She sent money home to her parents in Nigeria every month. She didn't have savings like that. But she looked at Taehyung. She believed in him. She believed he was special. I will get it for you, Adana said quietly. Taehyung stopped pacing. How? You don't have that kind of money. I have land, Adana said. My grandmother left me a plot of land in Lagos. It is everything I have. It was supposed to be for my future children. But I believe in you, Taehyung. Taehyung fell to his knees. He hugged her waist and wept. I promise you, Adana. If you do this for me, I will give you the world. We will rule Seoul together. You will never work another day in your life. Adana made the call the next day. It was the hardest phone call of her life. Her uncle in Lagos screamed at her. He told her she was foolish to sell her grandmother's land for a man, especially a man from a different culture who promised big things. But Adana was stubborn. She sold the land. 2 weeks later, the money was in her account. She brought the cash to Taehyung in a bag. He was shaking with excitement. He was ready to run out the door to buy his servers, to rent a small office. Wait, Adana said. She pulled a piece of paper out of her bag. What is this? Taehyung asked, his eyes glued to the money. It is just a contract, Adana said. She had written it herself. It was simple. It said that she was the primary investor. My uncle insisted. He said I cannot just give money away without a paper. Just sign it so I can tell him I did it. Taehyung didn't even read it. He didn't care. He just wanted the money. He scribbled his signature at the bottom of the page. Done. Now let's go. Our future starts today. Adana took the paper and tucked it safely into her Bible. She didn't know then how important that piece of paper would be. The next 3 years were a blur of hard work. They got married in a tiny civil ceremony. No family came. His family still hated him, and her family was too far away. But they were happy. Adana worked double shifts at the hospital to pay their rent and buy food, while Taehyung worked 20 hours a day on his computer. She would come home at 2 a.m. and find him asleep on the keyboard. She would gently cover him with a blanket. She cooked for him, cleaned for him, and even learned how to do basic coding to help him fix bugs when he was too tired to see straight. Slowly, Skylink began to work. First, a small company bought it, then a bigger one. Then the money started rolling in. At first, Taehyung was grateful. He would hug her and say, "We are doing it, Adana." But as the bank account grew, Taehyung began to change. It started with small things. He stopped eating the Nigerian food she cooked. He said it was too spicy, and he needed to eat proper Korean food to fit in with his new business partners. Then, he stopped letting her come to the office. "It is better if you stay home," he said. "The investors, they are old-fashioned. They might be confused if they see you." Adana tried to be understanding. She knew Korean society could be conservative. She wanted him to succeed, so she stayed in the shadows. She quit her job at the hospital because he told her to. "My wife does not clean sick people," he had said proudly. But being at home alone was lonely. Taehyung came home later and later. He started buying expensive suits. He bought a new car. He hired a driver. One night, 6 months before the gala, Adana found a receipt in his jacket pocket while she was doing laundry. It was for a diamond bracelet, a very expensive one. Adana's heart skipped a beat. Was it a surprise for her? Her birthday was coming up. She put the receipt back and smiled. He was finally going to surprise her. Her birthday came and went. There was no bracelet. Taehyung didn't even come home that night. He texted her, "Big meeting. Don't wait up." Adana cried herself to sleep that night. The distance between them grew like a canyon. Taehyung became the IT boy of Seoul. He was on magazine covers. He was on the news. And in every interview, when they asked him about his success, he said, "I did this alone. I built this from nothing with my own 2 hands." He never mentioned Adana. He never mentioned the land in Lagos. He never mentioned the nights she stayed up fixing his code. Then came the invitation to the Grand Gala. This was the night Skylink would go public. It was the biggest night of his life. Taehyung came home 3 days before the event. He threw a box on the bed. "Wear this," he said. It was a blue dress. It was beautiful, but it was modest. It wasn't flashy. "You will come with me," he said, not looking at her. "But you must stay quiet. Do not speak to the reporters. Do not tell anyone who you are. Just smile and nod." "Why?" Adana asked, holding the dress. "Am I not your wife?" Taehyung sighed, rubbing his temples. "Adana, please. You don't understand business. Image is everything. Just do as I say." Now we are back in the hallway. Adana held the divorce papers in her hand. The shock was starting to fade, and a cold, hard anger was replacing it. He had used her. He had taken her inheritance, her love, and her labor, and now he was throwing her away like a used wrapper. "Go," Taehyung said again, gesturing to the exit. "Don't ruin my night." Adana looked at him. She looked at the man she had saved. And for the first time in 5 years, she didn't see the man she loved. She saw a monster. She turned to walk away, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Tears were streaming down her face, blurring her vision. She walked toward the exit, just as he wanted. But as she passed the security checkpoint near the entrance, she saw a large poster on an easel. It was a picture of Taehyung. Next to him, smiling brightly, was a woman. Adana stopped. She knew that face. It was Haeun, the daughter of the mayor of Seoul. She was beautiful, pale, and rich. The text on the poster read, CEO Taehyung and his fiancée Haeun to announce the future of Skylink tonight. Fiancé? Adana felt like she had been punched in the stomach. He wasn't just leaving her. He had already replaced her. He had been planning this. That bracelet, it was for her. Adana looked at the poster, then back at the ballroom doors where Taehyung had just returned to his applause. She wasn't going to the airport. She gripped the yellow envelope tight. She remembered the Bible in her bag. She remembered the paper tucked inside it. The paper he hadn't read. She wiped her tears. She fixed her hair. She turned around and walked straight past the security guards. "Ma'am, you can't go in there," a guard shouted, reaching for her arm. "The CEO just gave orders for you to leave." Adana spun around, her eyes flashing with a fire that scared the guard. "I am not leaving," she said, her voice shaking but loud. "And I am not the CEO's wife anymore." "Then who are you?" the guard asked, confused. Adana pushed past him and put her hand on the heavy oak doors of the ballroom. She could hear Taehyung on the microphone inside. "I," Adana whispered to herself, "I am the owner." She pushed the doors open with a loud bang. Every head in the room turned. The music stopped. Taehyung froze on stage, his glass of champagne halfway to his mouth. Next to him stood Haeun, wearing the diamond bracelet. Adana stepped into the light. The silence in the ballroom was heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Hundreds of eyes turned to look at Adana. The wealthy investors in their tuxedos, the famous actors in their silk dresses, and the reporters with their cameras. They all stared at the woman standing in the doorway. Adana stood tall, even though her legs were shaking. Her chest was heaving up and down. She looked at Taehyung on the stage. He looked like a statue. His face was pale, and his hand was gripping the microphone so tight his knuckles were white. Next to him, Haeun, the beautiful heiress, looked confused. She whispered something to Taehyung, touching his arm with her diamond-covered hand. That touch broke Adana's heart all over again. "Who is that?" A woman in the front row whispered loud enough for Adana to hear. "Is that a cleaner?" "She looks upset," a man replied. "Maybe she is drunk." Adana took a step forward. Her heels clicked on the floor. "Taehyung," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the silent room it carried. "Tell them." Taehyung blinked. He recovered from his shock quickly. He was a businessman after all. He knew how to lie. He stepped forward to the edge of the stage, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Taehyung said, his voice smooth like velvet. "I apologize for this interruption. Please do not be alarmed." He looked at Adana with eyes that were cold and dead. "Security," he called out calmly. "Please escort this woman out. She is unwell." "Unwell!" Adana shouted. The anger burned inside her, hotter than the shame. She walked faster toward the stage. "I am not unwell, Taehyung. I am your wife. I am the reason you are standing on that stage." A gasp went through the crowd. Cameras started flashing. The reporters sensed a scandal. Taehyung's smile twitched. He knew he had to stop her before she said too much. He laughed, a loud, fake laugh that echoed in the room. "My wife." Taehyung shook his head, looking at the audience as if sharing a joke. "Oh, this is tragic. You see, everyone, this is Adana. She used to be my housekeeper when I was living in a small apartment years ago. She was a kind woman, but she developed an obsession." Adana froze. She stopped walking. "Housekeeper," she whispered. "Yes," Taehyung continued, sounding sad and sympathetic. "She started believing we were in a relationship. I tried to help her. I gave her money. I paid for her medical bills. But her mind, she creates fantasies. She thinks she owns a part of my life. It is very sad." He looked at Adana with fake pity. "Adana, please. Go home. Take your medication. I will send my driver to check on you later." The crowd murmured. They believed him. Of course they believed him. He was the CEO of Skylink. He was rich, handsome, and successful. She was just a woman in an old blue dress, screaming at a party. "Oh, poor thing," a woman said nearby. She must be crazy. Stalkers are so scary, another said. Adana felt like she was drowning. He wasn't just leaving her. He was erasing her. He was turning her sacrifice into a joke. He was turning her love into madness. You are a liar, Adana screamed. She ran toward the stage. I sold my father's land for you. I fixed your code. I am not your maid. I am your wife. Ask him. Ask him to show you his marriage certificate. Taehyung's face hardened. He signaled to the large men in black suits standing by the walls. Get her out. Now. 2 security guards grabbed Adana's arms. They were strong. They pulled her back. Let me go. Adana struggled, kicking her feet. Taehyung, tell the truth. Haun, he is using you too. He is a fraud. Haun stepped forward, looking down at Adana from the high stage. She wrinkled her nose. Get this trash out of here, she said, her voice sharp. She is ruining my engagement party. Trash! Adana cried, tears finally spilling over. I paid for that suit he is wearing. I paid for the servers that run your company. But nobody was listening anymore. The music started playing again, loud and upbeat, to drown out her screams. The security guards dragged her backward. Her shoes scraped against the floor. She saw Taehyung turn his back on her. He took Haun's hand and kissed it. The crowd applauded. They dragged her out of the ballroom, through the golden hallway, and through the lobby. Guests stared at her like she was a criminal. Please, Adana begged the guards. He is lying. You have to believe me. The guards didn't speak. They pushed through the revolving doors and threw her onto the pavement outside. It had started to rain. The cold water soaked her blue dress instantly. Adana fell onto her hands and knees. The concrete scraped her skin. Do not come back, the guard said, standing over her. If you step foot on this property again, the CEO has ordered us to call the police and have you arrested for harassment. He went inside and locked the glass doors. Adana sat there in the rain. She was shivering. Her hair was plastered to her face. She looked through the glass doors. She could see the warm, golden light of the party inside. She could see the blurry figures of people laughing and dancing. She had never felt so small. She had lost her money. She had lost her husband. She had lost her dignity. And now, she was alone in a foreign country in the rain with nowhere to go. She reached for her bag, which the guard had tossed next to her. She hugged it to her chest. At least she still had the Bible. At least she still had the contract. But what good was a piece of paper against a billionaire? He had lawyers. He had the media. He had power. She had nothing. I should go to the airport, she whispered to herself. I should just go home to Nigeria and forget I ever met him. She started to stand up, her body aching. She wiped the mud off her knees. Just as she turned to walk toward the street to find a taxi, a black car pulled up to the curb. It wasn't a taxi. It was a long, sleek limousine with tinted windows. It looked even more expensive than Taehyung's car. The car stopped right in front of her. The back window rolled down slowly. Adana hesitated. She hugged her bag tighter. Was this Taehyung sending someone to hurt her? To take the papers? A man sat in the back seat. He was older, with gray hair and a sharp, scarred face. He was smoking a cigar. He looked dangerous, but his eyes were sharp and intelligent. He looked Adana up and down. He saw the mud on her dress. He saw the tears in her eyes. You made quite a scene in there, the man said. His voice was deep and gravelly. Leave me alone, Adana said, stepping back. I have nothing left to steal. The man chuckled. I don't want to steal from you, Mrs. Kim. Or should I say, the Real CEO of Skylink. Adana froze. The rain pounded on the roof of the car. How? How do you know who I am? I know everything about Taehyung, the man said. I know he is a liar. I know he is a thief. And I know that tonight, he made the biggest mistake of his life by throwing you out. The man opened the car door from the inside. The leather interior was warm and inviting. Who are you? Adana asked, shivering. I am the man who wants to see Taehyung destroyed, the man said. My name is Chairman Choi. Taehyung stole his first algorithm from my son before he met you. I have been waiting for years to find a weakness in his armor. And tonight I found you. He extended a hand toward her. Get in, Adana. Do not go to the airport. If you want justice, if you want to make him pay for every tear you cried tonight, get in the car. We have a lot of work to do. Adana looked at the man's hand. Then she looked back at the hotel where her husband was celebrating with another woman. She thought about the housekeeper lie. She thought about the laughter. The fire in her belly, which had almost gone out, roared back to life. She didn't want to go home. She wanted revenge. Adana gripped her bag tight. She stepped forward and took Chairman Choi's hand. "Let's burn him down," she whispered. She climbed into the car, and the door slammed shut, sealing out the rain. The inside of the limousine was quiet, like a library. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the soft drumming of rain against the dark windows. Adana sat on the soft leather seat, shivering. Her blue dress, the dress she had worn to celebrate her husband, was ruined. It was muddy, wet, and heavy. Across from her, Chairman Choi opened a small fridge. He pulled out a bottle of water and handed it to her. Then he pulled out a thick, dry towel. "Dry yourself," he said, his voice rough but kind. "You cannot fight a war if you are sick." Adana wiped her face. She looked at this stranger. "Why do you hate him?" she asked. "Why do you hate Taehyung?" Chairman Choi's eyes went dark. He looked out the window at the passing city lights. 5 years ago, my son was the brightest coder in Seoul. He had an idea. He trusted a friend with that idea. That friend was Taehyung. Taehyung stole the code, patented it under his own name, and then sued my son for stealing. My son. He could not handle the shame. He left the country. He is a broken man now. Choi looked back at Adana. Taehyung destroys people to climb up. He destroyed my son. And tonight, I saw him trying to destroy you. I cannot let him win again. Adana felt a fresh wave of anger. Taehyung was not just a bad husband, he was a thief. He had stolen from everyone. "Show me the papers," Choi said, pointing to her bag. "The contract you mentioned." Adana's hands shook as she opened her bag. She pulled out her Bible. Tucked inside the back cover, folded neatly, was the piece of paper. It was old and slightly yellowed, but the ink was clear. She handed it to Choi. He put on his reading glasses and turned on a small reading light. He read it silently. Adana held her breath. Was it enough? Or was it just a useless piece of paper like Taehyung said? Choi's eyes widened. He read it again. Then a slow, terrifying smile spread across his face. "My God," Choi whispered. "He really didn't read it, did he?" "He was in a rush," Adana said. "He just wanted the money." Choi laughed. It was a deep, satisfied sound. "Adana, this is not just a contract. This is a death sentence for his career. Look here." He pointed to a paragraph in the middle. It says, "In exchange for full funding, the investor, Adana, retains 100% ownership of all intellectual property, source codes, and patents developed using these funds until the investor agrees to sell." Choi looked at her with respect. "He doesn't own Skylink. He doesn't own the code. He is just the manager. You own the company." Adana stared at the paper. "I own it. You own everything," Choi said. "If we show this to the courts, his IPO, initial public offering, is illegal. He cannot sell shares of a company he doesn't own. If he tries to go public on Friday, he will go to jail for fraud." Adana felt a surge of power. For the first time all night, she stopped shivering. "But," Choi warned, his face becoming serious, "Taehyung is powerful now. He has the mayor's daughter, Haun. He has lawyers. If he finds out you have this paper, he will try to destroy it. He might even try to hurt you. You need to be ready." "I am ready," Adana said. Her voice was stronger now. "He killed the woman who loved him tonight. Now he has to deal with the woman who owns him." Choi nodded. He pressed a button on the intercom. "Driver, take us to the penthouse. And call my stylist. We have work to do." The next morning, Adana stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling mirror in Chairman Choi's guest suite. The woman in the mirror was not the tired nurse. She was not the housekeeper. Her hair, which she usually kept in a messy bun, was now styled in sharp, elegant braids that crowned her head like a queen. Her face was made up perfectly, hiding the dark circles from crying. And the dress, the blue dress, was in the trash. Now she wore a sharp, white business suit. It was tailored perfectly to her body. She wore high heels that clicked like hammers on the floor. She looked expensive. She looked dangerous. "You look like a CEO," Choi said, walking into the room. He handed her a briefcase. "The original contract is in a safe deposit box at the bank. These are copies. Are you ready to crash a meeting?" "Where is he?" Adana asked. "He is at the Skylink headquarters," Choi said. "He is having a final meeting with the top investors and Haun's father, the mayor. They are signing the final papers for the merger before the public launch tomorrow." Adana gripped the briefcase handle. "Let's go." At the Skylink headquarters, the mood was celebratory. Taehyung sat at the head of a massive glass table. The room was filled with sunlight and the smell of expensive coffee. On his right sat Haun, looking bored but beautiful. On his left sat the mayor, a heavy man with a loud laugh. Around the table were 5 of the richest investors in Korea. This is a historic moment, Taehyung said, holding up a glass of champagne. Tomorrow, Skylink goes public. We will be the biggest tech company in Asia. And with my marriage to Ha-eun, we will be untouchable. The mayor clapped him on the back. You are a good son-in-law, Taehyung. You came from nothing, and you built a kingdom. I like that. Taehyung smiled. He felt like a god. The memory of Adana screaming at the party last night was already fading. She was gone. She was probably on a plane to Nigeria by now, crying in economy class. He had won. Let's sign the papers, the mayor said. I have a golf game at noon. Taehyung picked up his gold pen. He opened the thick document in front of him. This signature would make him a billionaire officially. He lowered the pen to the paper. The tip of the pen touched the line. Bam! The double doors of the conference room flew open. They hit the walls with a loud crash. Taehyung jumped, making a jagged line of ink on the paper. What is the meaning of this? He shouted, standing up. Security. Security, let us in, a deep voice said. Chairman Choi walked into the room. He was smiling. Taehyung's face went pale. Choi, you have no business here. Get out before I call the police. I am just here as an advisor, Choi said calmly. To advise these investors that they are about to buy a stolen car. What are you talking about? The mayor demanded. I am not the one you should listen to, Choi said, stepping aside. Adana stepped into the room. For a second, Taehyung didn't recognize her. The white suit, the braids, the makeup, the power radiating off her. She looked taller. Then she looked him in the eyes. Adana, Taehyung whispered. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Ha-eun stood up, knocking her chair over. You, the crazy maid. How did you get in here? Security. Sit down, Adana said. Her voice was not a scream. It was low, calm, and terrifying. It silenced the room. She walked to the table. She didn't look at the investors. She looked only at Taehyung. You told them I was your housekeeper, Adana said, placing her briefcase on the glass table. You are, Taehyung stammered, sweat breaking out on his forehead. Gentlemen, this woman is mentally unstable. She is a stalker. Please ignore her. A stalker? Adana opened the briefcase. She pulled out a stack of papers. She slid them down the long table. They stopped right in front of the mayor. Read it, Adana said. The mayor picked up the paper. He put on his glasses. The room was silent. Taehyung reached out to grab the paper. Don't read that. It's a forgery. If you touch that paper, Choi warned from the door, you are admitting guilt. Taehyung froze. The mayor read. His eyes moved left to right. Then he stopped. He looked up at Taehyung. His face was red with anger. Taehyung, the mayor said slowly. Is this your signature? Taehyung looked at the paper. It was the contract. The contract he signed 5 years ago in the noodle shop. The contract he didn't read. I. Taehyung couldn't speak. This document states, the mayor read aloud, his voice booming, that all ownership of Skylink belongs to Mrs. Adana Kim. It says you are merely an employee. The investors gasped. Ha-eun looked at Taehyung with disgust. You don't own the company, she screeched. You told me you owned it. I do. Taehyung shouted, panic taking over. She tricked me. She is a witch. That paper means nothing. I did the work. I built the code. You built the frame, Adana said, repeating the words she had rehearsed in her head 1,000 times. But I paid for the engine. And I own the engine. She leaned over the table, getting close to his face. Taehyung, you fired me as your wife. So now, I am firing you as the CEO. You can't do this. Taehyung screamed. He looked like a trapped animal. He looked around the room for help, but the investors were already closing their folders. They were backing away from him. The deal is off, one investor said. We cannot invest in a company with a disputed ownership. And the wedding is off, the mayor said, throwing the papers at Taehyung. Come, Ha-eun. We are leaving. I will not let my daughter marry a fraud. Daddy, wait. Ha-eun cried, but she grabbed her purse and followed her father. She didn't even look at Taehyung as she left. In 2 minutes, the room was empty. Only Adana, Choi, and Taehyung remained. Taehyung stood there, shaking. His empire was crumbling in front of his eyes. He looked at Adana. His eyes were not sad. They were filled with pure black hate. He walked slowly around the table toward her. You think you have won? Taehyung hissed. You think a piece of paper makes you safe? He reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. Hello? Yes, Taehyung said into the phone, never taking his eyes off Adana. Execute Plan B. Burn the servers. If I can't have the company, nobody can. He hung up and smiled a wicked smile. You own the code, Adana? Fine. But in 10 minutes, there won't be any code left to own. Plan B. Adana repeated, her blood running cold. She looked at Taehyung. He was smiling like a madman. You can't steal what doesn't exist, Taehyung laughed, backing away toward the door. My head of IT is wiping the servers right now. Every line of code, every user data, every backup. In 10 minutes, Skylink will be nothing but an empty shell. You will own 100% of nothing. He turned and ran out of the conference room. Catch him, Chairman Choi shouted to his bodyguards. Don't let him leave the building. 2 guards sprinted after Taehyung, but Adana didn't move toward the door. She looked at the laptop on the table. She looked at the large screen on the wall. We don't need to catch him, Adana said, her voice tight with panic. We need to stop the wipe. If that code disappears, 5 years of my life disappear with it. Can we stop it remotely? Choi asked, pulling out his phone. No, Adana said, kicking off her high heels. She couldn't run in them. The command came from the inside. I have to go to the server room. It's on the 20th floor. I will come with you, Choi said. Adana grabbed the laptop and ran. She ran faster than she had ever run in her life. She wasn't running for money anymore. She was running for her dignity. That code was her baby. It was the only child she and Taehyung had ever had. She had stayed up nights nursing it, fixing it, making it strong. And now he was trying to kill it. They reached the elevators. Adana smashed the button. Nothing happened. He cut the power to the elevators, Adana realized. He is trying to slow us down. The stairs, Choi said, pointing to the emergency exit. Adana didn't hesitate. She burst through the stairwell doors. 20 floors. They were on the top floor, the 30th. They had to go down 10 flights. They ran. Adana's bare feet slapped against the cold concrete steps. Her breath came in short gasps. Behind her, she could hear the heavier footsteps of Chairman Choi struggling to keep up. Go, Adana, Choi shouted, his voice echoing in the stairwell. Don't wait for me. Adana flew down the stairs. Floor 28. Floor 25. Floor 22. She burst onto the 20th floor. The hallway was bathed in flashing red light. An alarm was blaring. Beep, beep, beep. She ran toward the server room at the end of the hall. The door was made of thick glass. Through it, she could see a man sitting at the main terminal. It was Mr. Park, Taehyung's loyal IT manager. He was typing furiously. On the giant screens inside the room, a red bar was loading. System purge, 65% complete. Adana tried the door handle. Locked. Open the door, she screamed, banging on the glass. Mr. Park looked up. He saw Adana. He sneered and shook his head. He pointed to the screen. 70%. Adana looked around. She needed to get in. She saw a fire extinguisher on the wall. She grabbed it. It was heavy red steel. She swung it back with all the strength she had left from 5 years of carrying a dead marriage. Crash! The glass shattered into a million diamonds. Adana stepped through the broken frame, ignoring the glass that cut her feet. Mr. Park jumped up. You can't be in here. Security. He tried to block her path to the computer. Adana didn't stop. She ran straight at him and shoved him. He stumbled back, surprised by her strength. He fell over a chair. Adana slid into the chair in front of the terminal. System purge, 85% complete. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Access denied, the computer flashed. Admin password required to cancel purge. It's over, Mr. Park yelled, scrambling to his feet. Only Taehyung knows the password. He changed it this morning. You can't stop it. Adana's heart hammered in her chest. 90%. She tried Taehyung's birthday. Incorrect. She tried the date Skylink was founded. Incorrect. She tried Sojin, the name of his new mistress. Incorrect. System purge, 95% complete. Give up, Mr. Park log. Head. Watch it burn. Adana closed her eyes for 1 second. She thought about Taehyung. The real Taehyung. The man she met in the noodle shop. The man who had cried on her shoulder. He was arrogant, yes. But he was also sentimental in a twisted way. He never created anything new. He only stole or used old things. If he changed the password, he would use something he thought was his greatest achievement. What did he think was his greatest moment? The moment he thought he became free. Adana typed rapidly. DIVLRC. Incorrect. No, that wasn't it. Think, Adana. Think like him. He thinks he is a king. 98%. Suddenly, she remembered what he said to her in the hallway. I built this from nothing with my own 2 hands. He was obsessed with himself. She typed, I am God. The screen froze. 99%. Adana held her breath. The red bar hovered at the end. Then, the text changed from red to green. Cancel command accepted. Purge stopped. Restoring files. Adana slumped back in the chair. She gasped for air. She had done it. Mr. Park stood behind her, his mouth open. How? How did you guess? I didn't guess, Adana said, turning to look at him with cold eyes. I know how a narcissist thinks. Just then, Chairman Choi burst into the room, followed by 2 police officers. Arrest him, Choi said, pointing at Mr. Park. Attempted destruction of corporate property. The police grabbed Mr. Park. Adana stood up. Her legs felt like jelly. She looked at the screen. The files were safe. Her legacy was safe. Where is Taehyung? Adana asked. My guards lost him in the stairwell, Choi said, looking worried. He made it to the parking garage. The police have blocked the exits, but he hasn't come out. He is trapped in the building. He won't leave, Adana said softly. Not without a fight. He is like a rat. When a rat is cornered, it bites. We need to get you to safety, Choi said. Come. The police are waiting in the lobby. They took the elevator down this time. The power had been restored. Adana stood in the middle of the elevator, checking her phone. The news was already breaking. Scandal at Skylink. Unknown wife claims ownership. IPO halted. She had won. The world knew the truth. The elevator doors opened into the lobby. It was full of police and reporters. The cameras flashed blindingly. Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim. Is it true you own the code? Mrs. Kim, where is your husband? Adana put her hand up to shield her eyes. Chairman Choi guided her toward the glass doors. Ignore them. Just get to the car. They walked out of the building. The rain had stopped, but the ground was wet. The air was fresh. Adana took a deep breath. She felt free. Suddenly, a screech of tires pierced the air. Screech. Adana turned. From the underground parking ramp, a sleek black sports car flew out. It was going fast. Too fast. The engine was roaring like a beast. It wasn't driving toward the exit gate. It swerved. It was driving straight onto the sidewalk. Straight at Adana. Adana, look out! Choi screamed. Adana froze. She could see Taehyung's face through the windshield. He wasn't looking at the road. He was looking right at her. His eyes were wide and wild. He was screaming. He wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to kill her. If I can't have it, his voice echoed in her memory. Nobody can. The car was 5 meters away. 4. 3. Adana couldn't move. Her feet were glued to the pavement. Chairman Choi dove at her, pushing her hard to the side. Crash. The sound was deafening. Metal hitting concrete. Glass shattering. The scream of people running. Adana hit the ground hard, rolling on the wet cement. The world spun. She looked up. Taehyung's car had smashed into the heavy stone pillar right where she had been standing a second ago. The front of the car was crushed like a soda can. Smoke was pouring out of the hood. Adana pushed herself up on her elbows. Chairman Choi. Choi was lying a few feet away, groaning. He was hurt but alive. But the car. The driver's door was opening. Adana watched in horror as a hand gripped the side of the broken door. It was bloody. Taehyung crawled out of the wreckage. Blood was pouring down his face from a cut on his forehead. He couldn't stand up straight. One of his legs was dragging. But he had something in his hand. A jagged piece of broken glass. He looked at Adana. He smiled. His teeth were red. You, Taehyung wheezed, stumbling toward her. You ruined everything. The police were running toward them, guns drawn. Drop it. Drop it now. But Taehyung didn't listen. He lunged at Adana with the glass shard. The shard of glass came down fast. It aimed straight for Adana's face. Time seemed to stop. Adana could see the madness in Taehyung's eyes. She could smell the smoke from the burning car. She could hear the police shouting, "Drop it!" But Adana didn't close her eyes. She didn't scream. For 5 years, she had been afraid of disappointing him. She had been afraid of his anger. She had been afraid of losing him. But now, staring at the man who wanted to kill her, she realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. She rolled to the right. The glass shard stabbed into the wet concrete, missing her ear by an inch. Taehyung screamed in frustration. He tried to pull the glass out to strike again, but his injured leg collapsed under him. He fell onto the pavement, gasping for air. Adana scrambled to her feet. She didn't run away. She stood over him. "Stay down," the police officer yelled, running up with his taser drawn. Taehyung looked up at Adana. Blood was dripping into his eye. He looked pathetic. He looked like the crying boy in the noodle shop all those years ago, but this time, there was no kindness in his face, only hate. "Why?" Taehyung choked out. "Why didn't you just leave? Why did you have to ruin me?" Adana looked down at him. She smoothed her white suit, which was now stained with mud and oil. "I didn't ruin you, Taehyung," she said, her voice calm and clear amidst the chaos. "You ruined yourself the moment you thought people were disposable. You thought I was a ladder you could climb and then kick away. But you forgot one thing." "What?" he spat. "A ladder is the only thing holding you up," Adana said. The police officer jumped on Taehyung, pinning his arms behind his back. "Kim Taehyung, you are under arrest for fraud, attempted murder, and corporate theft." As they handcuffed him, Taehyung started to cry. But these weren't tears of regret. They were tears of a spoiled child who lost his toy. "I am the CEO," he screamed as they dragged him toward the police car. "I am Skylink. You can't touch me. I have money." Adana watched him go. She saw the press taking photos of him, not as the golden boy of tech, but as a muddy, bloody criminal in handcuffs. "Mrs. Kim?" Adana turned. A paramedic was helping Chairman Choi stand up. Choi was holding his side, wincing in pain, but he was smiling. "Are you okay?" Adana asked, rushing to him. "I am fine," Choi said, patting her hand. "I have waited 10 years to see justice. A few bruises are a small price to pay." He looked at the police car driving away with Taehyung inside. "The board of directors is calling me. They saw the news. They want to speak to the real owner." Adana looked at the Skylink building towering above them. It was huge. It was intimidating. "I don't know if I can run a company like this," Adana admitted softly. "I am a nurse. I help people heal. I don't know how to fight sharks." Choi shook his head. Taehyung was a shark, and look where it got him. "Maybe the business world doesn't need more sharks, Adana. Maybe it needs a healer." 3 months later, the morning sun shone through the massive glass windows of the CEO's office on the 30th floor of Skylink Tower. The office looked different now. The cold, gray furniture was gone. In its place were warm colors, comfortable chairs, and plants. On the desk, there was no picture of a politician or a celebrity. There was a framed photo of an old woman, Adana's grandmother. Adana sat in the big leather chair. She wasn't wearing a stiff suit today. She wore a vibrant, colorful dress that celebrated her heritage. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Excuse me, Madam CEO. The meeting with the new interns is starting." "Thank you, Jiwoo," Adana smiled. "I'll be right there." Adana picked up a newspaper from her desk before she left. The headline read, "Former CEO sentenced to 15 years." The article said that Taehyung had been found guilty of all charges. Haeun, the mayor's daughter, had testified against him to save her own reputation. He was alone. He had no money, no fame, and no friends. He was exactly where he feared he would be, a nobody. Adana felt a pang of sadness, not for the monster who tried to kill her, but for the potential he had wasted. She folded the newspaper and threw it in the recycling bin. That chapter was closed. She walked out of her office and into the main workspace. The atmosphere at Skylink had changed. People were talking to each other. They were smiling. When Adana walked by, they didn't freeze in fear. They waved. "Good morning, Adana." "Morning, boss." She had rehired the people Taehyung had fired for being too old or not cool enough. She had given Mr. Park's job to a brilliant young woman from a poor village who reminded Adana of herself. Adana walked into the conference room. 10 nervous interns were sitting there. They were young college students with big dreams. They stood up when she entered. "Please sit," Adana said kindly. She looked at them. She saw the hunger in their eyes. She saw the fear of failure. "Welcome to Skylink," Adana began. "My name is Adana. You are here because you have brilliant minds. You can code, you can design, you can build." She paused, walking around the table. "But in this company, brilliance is not enough. We value kindness first. We value loyalty. We do not steal ideas here. We grow them together." She stopped in front of a young boy who looked terrified. His shoes were old and worn out. He looked like he hadn't eaten a good meal in days. What is your name? Adana asked gently. Minsu, the boy whispered. I have an idea for a medical app, but I have no money to build it. Adana smiled. She remembered a rainy night in a noodle shop. She remembered a man who needed a chance. Minsu, Adana said. Money is just fuel. The idea is the engine. And the person. She tapped his chest over his heart. The person is the driver. She turned to the group. Today, I am announcing the Grandmother's Gift Foundation. Skylink will provide funding for young entrepreneurs who come from nothing. But there is one condition. The room was silent. You must sign a contract, Adana said, her eyes twinkling. Not a contract to give me your profits, but a contract that says when you make it to the top, you will reach back down and pull someone else up. The intern smiled. Minsu looked at her with hope shining in his eyes. Now, Adana clapped her hands. Who is hungry? I know a great noodle shop around the corner. My treat. As Adana walked out of the room with the excited students following her, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had lost a husband, yes. She had lost years of her life to a lie. But she had found her voice. She had found her power. And most importantly, she had found that her grandmother was right all along. Kindness was not a weakness. It was the most powerful business strategy in the world. Adana looked out the window at the beautiful city of Seoul. She wasn't an outsider anymore. She was the queen of the skyline. The end. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth and comment down below justice for Adana if you enjoyed this story. See you in the next video.